Earth burned. The sky, once a canvas of blues and whites, had become a suffocating swirl of smoke and ash. The Xalnar fleet hung in the upper atmosphere, massive warships blotting out the stars, watching as the final fires of human civilization died. Their bombardment had been methodical, precision strikes eliminating military installations first, then the cities, then the planet's infrastructure. There was no mercy, no hesitation. They had done this before, 1,000 times, across 1,000 worlds. It was how their empire grew. And now, humanity was gone. Or so they thought. On the bridge of the dreadnought Varish Kull, High Commander Xyros of the Xalnar Dominion observed the devastation below with cold satisfaction. His species, warlike and ancient, had encountered many civilizations in their march across the stars. Some had been strong enough to resist for a time. Others had crumbled instantly. Humanity had fallen somewhere in between. They fought harder than expected, Xyros admitted, speaking to his second-in-command, a smaller Xalnar officer clad in ceremonial battle armor. Their ships were primitive, their tactics crude, but their resilience, it was unusual. The officer gave a sharp nod. "It is no matter, High Commander. They are finished." Xyros turned away from the viewport, his voice tinged with something close to amusement. Yes, finished. Across the galaxy, humanity was being erased. The Xalnar had deployed extermination teams to hunt down any survivors. Spaceports, colonies, and deep space stations were purged one by one. The message was clear. No human could be allowed to exist. The galactic community, vast and indifferent, did nothing. Some species whispered about the Xalnar's brutality, but they would not risk war. Others had never trusted humanity in the first place. Too aggressive, too stubborn, too unpredictable. They did not mourn their passing. But history had made a mistake. Humanity was not extinct. It was waiting. Deep in the shattered remains of Earth's orbital debris field, a lone warship drifted. The Black Nova, a heavily modified human battleship, had escaped destruction by shutting down its reactor and playing dead among the wreckage. Aboard, a handful of survivors gathered in the dimly lit command center, watching the final moments of their homeworld through cracked display screens. Captain Elias Voss stood at the center of the room, silent, his fists clenched so hard his knuckles turned white. The Xalnar had taken everything. His home, his family, his world. But they had made a mistake. They had left survivors. A younger officer, his face streaked with soot, turned to him. "Captain, what do we do now?" Voss exhaled slowly, his voice cold and steady. "We make them regret it." The words hung in the air like a spark in dry brush. Around him, battered soldiers and engineers straightened. Eyes hardened. Rage burned. Humanity wasn't finished. It was just getting started. The Black Nova drifted in the silence of space, hidden among the shattered remains of Earth's orbital defenses. The ship's hull was scared, its power reserves critically low, but its heart still beat. Humanity was not dead. Not yet. Captain Elias Voss stood on the bridge, his expression carved from stone. The dim red glow of emergency lighting cast deep shadows across his face. Behind him, a dozen officers and engineers worked in grim silence, repairing systems, running diagnostics, scanning for other survivors. They had no home to return to, no government to report to, only the cold void and the knowledge that they were all that remained of their species. Voss turned to his tactical officer, Lieutenant Sarai Kane, her face bruised from their last battle. "Status on the distress signals." "Nothing," she said, her voice tight with exhaustion. The Xalnar hit every major colony, every outpost, every relay station. If there's anyone else out there, they're staying dark. "Smart," Voss muttered. Broadcasting a signal meant death. The Xalnar weren't just hunting survivors, they were erasing evidence that humanity had ever existed. A tense silence settled over the bridge. Voss looked at his crew, their faces lined with grief and fury. These were hardened soldiers, veterans of humanity's last war, but even they had never seen destruction like this. And yet, they were still here. "We're not done," Voss said suddenly, his voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "They think we're dead, and that gives us an advantage." He turned to the crew, his gaze burning. "The Talnar want to wipe us from history, but history isn't written by those who win wars. It's written by those who survive them." A murmur rippled through the bridge. Sarai leaned forward. "So what's the plan, Captain?" Voss stepped toward the holographic star map in the center of the room. "We stop running. We stop hiding. We strike back." The room tensed. Some of the officers exchanged uneasy glances. A direct attack on the Talnar. It was suicide. Voss's lips curled into something that wasn't quite a smile. "We don't need to fight them head-on. Not yet. But there are human prisoners out there. Scientists, engineers, soldiers. They didn't kill us all. Not yet. And if we're going to have any chance at survival, we need numbers." A flicker of hope passed through the crew. Lieutenant Kane tapped on the console, pulling up a data feed. "There's something," she said. "A Xalnar research facility orbiting Ta City IV. It was a human science colony before the invasion. Now it's a prison. Hundreds of survivors are being held there." Voss nodded. "Then that's where we start." He turned to his crew, his voice steel. "The Xalnar took our home. Now we take our people back." The Black Nova powered up, engines burning like embers in the dark. The ghosts of Earth were about to strike. The Black Nova dropped out of FTL just beyond the Ta City system, its engines humming with barely restrained fury. The ship had been designed for war, but now it was something else, an instrument of vengeance. On the bridge, Captain Elias Voss studied the tactical display. The Xalnar research facility, a hulking station of blackened metal, orbited the gas giant Ta City IV. Its spindly docking arms held captured human freighters, their crews likely long dead or enslaved. Squadrons of Xalnar patrol craft drifted lazily nearby, unaware that death had come for them. Voss turned to his crew. "They don't expect us. That's our advantage." Lieutenant Sarai Kane, standing beside him, gave a sharp nod. "We'll only have one shot at this." Voss's lips curled in a grim smile. "Then we make it count." Operation Ghost Reaper. The attack began with silence. The Black Nova launched 6 stealth pods, modified mining drones equipped with human marines, toward the station. They drifted like space debris, cold and lifeless, until they made contact with the hull. Then, like parasites, they latched on. Inside the pods, Sergeant Tobias Rains and his strike team checked their weapons. Pulse rifles scavenged from the ruins of Earth, enhanced with stolen Xalnar tech. Rains' voice came through the comms, tight and eager. "Breaching in 3, 2, 1. With a hiss, the hull melted away beneath a thermal lance, and the Marines slipped inside like shadows. The Xalnar never saw them coming. In the dark corridors, the humans moved like wraiths, silenced weapons dropping guards before they could cry out. Security stations were hacked, cameras looped, alarms jammed. The station's command center, once a place of Xalnar dominance, became a graveyard. Then came the second phase. The Black Nova roared to life, its engines flaring as it streaked toward the station. The Xalnar patrols barely had time to react before hellfire rained upon them. Plasma cannons tore through their formations, human pilots pushing their stolen fighters past the enemy's defenses with terrifying precision. On the station, the prisoners heard the gunfire and the explosions. For months, they had believed humanity was gone. Now, as cell doors burst open and Marines stormed through, they saw the impossible. "On your feet," Rains barked, tossing rifles to the prisoners. "You're soldiers again." A beaten scientist, her face streaked with dried blood, grasped the weapon with shaking hands. Who are you?" Rains grinned. "We're the Unbroken. No more running." As alarms blared, the Marines fought their way back to the docking bay, escorting the rescued prisoners. The Xalnar, now fully aware of the attack, scrambled to respond. More guards poured into the corridors. Voss's voice crackled over comms. "Time's up. Get out now." Rains and his team piled into the stolen transport ships, just as the Black Nova unleashed its final salvo. The Xalnar station erupted in a fireball, its debris scattering across Ta City Ivy's orbit. As the Black Nova jumped into FTL, leaving behind the wreckage, Voss allowed himself a small, rare smile. Humanity had drawn blood. And this was only the beginning. The Xalnar were furious. The destruction of the Ta City IV station wasn't just an inconvenience, it was an insult. A species they had declared extinct had not only resurfaced, but had struck a blow that echoed across the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, the Xalnar Dominion had been caught off guard. They would not make that mistake again. In the heart of the Dominion's War Council, High Commander Xyros watched the holo footage of the battle, his claws tightening into the steel armrest of his throne. The humans had adapted too quickly. They had taken Xalnar technology, turned it against them, and disappeared into the void before retaliation could even begin. Unacceptable. He turned to the warlords assembled before him, his voice sharp as a blade. "Deploy the Void Reapers." The chamber fell silent. The Void Reapers were the Dominion's elite, a ruthless force of cybernetic hunters, designed for extermination. No species had ever survived their attention. "Find these humans," Xyros commanded. "Erase them. This time, leave nothing behind." The hunt begins. Aboard the Black Nova, Captain Elias Voss and his crew had no illusions about what would happen next. "They're coming for us," Lieutenant Sarai Kane said grimly, studying intercepted Xalnar transmissions. "They're sending their best." Voss exhaled slowly. Good. The rescued prisoners, scientists, engineers, and ex-soldiers had already begun integrating into the Unbroken's ranks. The Black Nova had been upgraded with stolen Xalnar tech, its weapons sharper, its defenses stronger, but they were still outnumbered. They needed a plan. The trap. Voss gathered his officers around the holographic star map. "We can't outrun them forever," he said, "and we sure as hell can't fight them head-on." Rains, the marine sergeant, grunted. "So what's the move?" Voss pointed at the map. "We lead them here. The Karnak Expanse, a graveyard of ancient warships, a drifting battlefield from a war long forgotten. It was a labyrinth of shattered cruisers, derelict stations, and volatile debris. The perfect killing ground. They'll chase us in, thinking we're trapped," Voss continued. "But we'll be waiting." The ambush. The Void Reapers arrived like executioners, their warships sleek and predatory, bristling with alien weaponry. They found the Black Nova seemingly stranded within the wreckage of the Karnak Expanse, its engines flickering. They moved in for the kill. Then the graveyard came to life. Explosions erupted from the wreckage as human sabotage teams detonated hidden charges, turning the battlefield into a storm of fire and shrapnel. Salvage turrets powered up, spitting death. The Black Nova, no longer playing dead, unleashed its full arsenal. The Void Reapers, caught in the trap, fought like demons, but it wasn't enough. One by one, their ships fell. When the last Reaper ship was reduced to burning debris, Voss sat back in his command chair, watching the flames consume them. "Let the Dominion know," he murmured. "Humanity doesn't run. We fight." The Unbroken had turned the hunters into the hunted, and the war had only just begun. The wreckage of the Void Reaper fleet drifted through the Karnak Expanse, silent tombs in the vastness of space. The Black Nova hovered amid the destruction, its hull scorched but still standing. The ambush had worked, but Captain Elias Voss knew the war was far from over. The Xalnar would not accept defeat. They would come back, stronger, in greater numbers. Voss leaned against the command console, studying the galactic map. They had won a battle, but humanity was still alone. That had to change. Lieutenant Sarai Kane stepped beside him. "We can't keep fighting like this. We need allies." Voss nodded. He had already reached the same conclusion. We'll need to convince the galaxy that humanity isn't dead, and that fighting the Xalnar is possible. Sergeant Tobias Rains scoffed. The same galaxy that left us to die. We're supposed to trust them. Voss's jaw tightened. We don't need trust. We need numbers. The Rogan Imperium. Their destination was Rogan Prime, homeworld of the Rogan Imperium, a warlike, reptilian species that had fought the Xalnar centuries ago and lost. Now, they were a shadow of their former selves, living under Dominion rule. The Black Nova emerged from FTL at the edge of Rogan space. Instantly, alarms blared, and warning messages flooded their comms. Human vessel, you are in restricted space. Power down or be destroyed. Voss smirked. They sound friendly. He opened a channel. This is Captain Ilias Voss of the Unbroken. We bring an opportunity, one that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. There was silence. Then, after a long pause, a new voice, deep and commanding. Dock at your own risk, human. Negotiations in blood. Rogan Prime was a world of towering spires and brutalist architecture. Once the seat of a proud empire, it was now patrolled by Xalnar war machines, its people shackled under their rule. Voss and his team walked through the city streets, their presence drawing murmurs from Rogan warriors. No human had been seen here since the war. They were led into the Great Hall, where Lord General Karvik, a towering battle-scarred Rogan, sat on a stone throne. His golden eyes studied them with cold calculation. "You're a dead man, Voss," Karvik growled. "Your species is gone. You should be hiding, not playing soldier." Voss stepped forward, unshaken. "We just destroyed an elite Xalnar fleet in the Karnic expanse." His voice was sharp as steel. "You don't have to bow to them anymore." Karvik's nostrils flared. "Brave words. But words won't break our chains." Voss tossed a data pad onto the war table. It contained everything. Battle footage, Xalnar weaknesses, proof of their survival. "Then fight," Voss challenged. "Not for humanity. For your people." Karvik studied the footage, then slowly grinned, revealing razor-sharp teeth. "You're either the bravest fool in the galaxy, or the deadliest." He extended a clawed hand. "Let's find out." The Rogan Imperium had just joined the war. The Rogan war banners unfurled for the first time in centuries. Across Rogan Prime, warriors gathered in underground bunkers and forgotten war halls, their scales glinting under the dim lights as they sharpened their weapons. Once broken, once enslaved, now they had a reason to fight. Humanity had shown them that the Xalnar were not invincible. Lord General Karvik stood beside Captain Ilias Voss in a dimly lit war chamber, studying the holomap of Dominion-controlled space. He pointed a clawed finger at Cephos 9, an industrial planet where the Xalnar manufactured their warships. "That is where we strike," Karvik growled. "If we take their shipyards, we cripple their reinforcements." Voss nodded. "Then we don't just take it. We make it a symbol. The galaxy thinks that Xalnar are untouchable. We're going to prove otherwise." The assault on Xiphos 9. The Dominion did not expect an attack. As the Black Nova and a fleet of Rogan warships dropped out of FTL, Xiphos 9's orbital defenses scrambled to respond. The planet's sky, once filled with the cold efficiency of a war machine, erupted into chaos. Voss led the charge. "Target their communication arrays first," he ordered. "We cut off their distress calls before they even know what's happening." The Black Nova weaved through enemy fire, its upgraded shields deflecting plasma bursts as it tore through the Dominion fleet. Rogan boarding pods slammed into Xalnar cruisers, warriors pouring out in brutal hand-to-hand combat. The ground war. On the planet's surface, Xalnar forces scrambled to defend the factories. Sergeant Tobias Rains and his Marines hit the ground running, pulse rifles blazing. Alongside them, Rogan berserkers charge, their massive blades slicing through enemy ranks. A Xalnar general, towering and armored in crimson battle gear, rallied his troops. "Crush them. The Dominion does not fall. Rains grinned. Let's test that theory. The battle raged through the factory districts, the humans and Rogan fighting as one. Explosions tore through the facilities, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. The Xalinar, once assured of their superiority, began to falter. And then something unexpected happened. Across Xiphos 9, enslaved species, those that Xalinar had conquered long ago, began to rise. Seeing the impossible unfold before them, they turned on their masters. Factory workers armed themselves. Prisoners escaped and seized weapons. The rebellion had begun. A galaxy awakens. By the time the last Xalinar warship fell, the planet belonged to the Resistance. Voss stood atop a captured Xalinar command post, looking down at the assembled forces. Humans, Rogan, liberated species. "This is just the beginning," he declared. "The Dominion will come. They will strike back." But today, the galaxy saw something they never thought possible. He raised his rifle skyward. The Xalinar can bleed. A deafening roar of victory echoed across Xiphos 9. The Unbroken had started a war. And this time, the galaxy was ready to fight. The fall of Xiphos 9 sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, a Dominion-controlled world had been ripped from Xalinar hands. The spark of rebellion had become a wildfire, spreading to other enslaved worlds. Across the stars, whispers of human survival turned into battle cries. But the Xalinar were not idle. In the Dominion's war chambers, High Commander Xyros stood before a massive holographic display of the burning ruins of Xiphos 9. His mandibles twitched in rage. "Humanity refuses to die," he hissed, his voice carrying a rare note of uncertainty. "They infect the weak with hope." A Dominion admiral, his cybernetic implants gleaming, knelt before Xyros. "The fleet is assembled, my lord. Our full might will burn them from existence." Xyros' golden eyes narrowed. "No more games. No more mercy. I want every rebel world purged." The battle for Arcos 7. The first target of Xyros' wrath was Arcos 7, a newly liberated mining world where Rogan forces and human engineers had begun constructing warships. The Dominion fleet arrived without warning. Hundreds of Xalinar warships, dreadnoughts, and carriers blotting out the sky. Their goal was not conquest. It was extermination. The Black Nova and its growing fleet had been stationed there, overseeing the rebellion's first shipyard. Now, they found themselves facing annihilation. Voss stood on the bridge, fists clenched. "We can't win this fight conventionally. We're outgunned 10-1. Sarai Kane scanned the enemy formation. "Then we don't fight fair." Defying the inevitable. As the Dominion fleet descended, the Unbroken forces unleashed a desperate counterattack. Every ship, every fighter, every gun on Arcos 7 fired at full capacity. The sky turned into a storm of plasma and debris. Voss led the battle from the front, the Black Nova diving through Xalinar formations, delivering precise, crippling strikes before vanishing into the chaos. But it wasn't enough. One by one, Allied ships were overwhelmed. The Rogan flagship was torn apart by enemy dreadnoughts. The shipyard exploded in flames. The planet's defenses crumbled under relentless orbital bombardment. The Black Nova was taking heavy damage, its shields flickering. Smoke filled the bridge, and alarms screamed. "This isn't a battle," Rains growled over the comms. "This is slaughter." Voss gritted his teeth. He had made a vow to never run, to never surrender. But staying meant complete extinction. He opened a channel to all remaining ships. "All forces, this is Captain Voss. Fall back. Now." A bitter escape. The rebels retreated, their fleets jumping to FTL just as Arcos 7 was reduced to fire and ash. Millions of lives, wiped out in an instant. Voss watched in silence as the planet's last transmissions flickered out. His knuckles turned white against the console. Sarai Kane turned to him, voice hollow. "They sent a message today." Voss exhaled slowly. "Then we'll send one back." The Unbroken had suffered their first true loss. But the war was far from over. The fires of Arcos 7 still burned in their minds. The Dominion had struck back with overwhelming force, reminding the galaxy why they had ruled unchallenged for so long. Millions had died. The rebellion had been crippled, but it was not destroyed. The Black Nova and the remnants of the fleet regrouped in the Veil Nebula, a star-choked expanse where sensors and FTL tracking were unreliable. Here, among the drifting remnants of forgotten battles, the survivors planned their next move. Voss stood before his war council, Sarai Kane, Tobias Rains, and Lord General Karvik, along with the leaders of newly liberated species. Their faces were grim, but their eyes still burned with defiance. "They think they've broken us," Voss said. "They haven't." Karvik bared his fangs. "We cannot retreat forever. The next time we face them, we must make them bleed harder than ever before." Sarai folded her arms. "We need a target, something that will shake the Dominion to its core." Voss tapped the holomat, zooming in on Prime Nexus, the Dominion's capital world. "We're not running anymore." Silence fell. Even Karvik hesitated. "You're suggesting we strike the heart of the Dominion itself?" Rains asked, incredulous. "They expect us to hide, to scatter like prey," Voss said. "But we're not prey. We're humanity. We survived their extermination. And now we remind them what that means." The final gambit. The plan was insanity, but insanity was what humanity did best. The Black Nova and its fleet approached Prime Nexus under the cover of the nebula's radiation storms. Zolnar defenses were immense. Battle stations, planetary shields, entire armadas standing guard. A direct assault was suicide. So they didn't attack from the outside. They infiltrated from within. Using stolen codes, cloaked transports slipped past the planetary defenses. Voss, Rains, and an elite strike team landed on the surface, disguised as Dominion officials. Their objective: the Tyrant Spire, the heart of the Dominion's rule, where High Commander Xyros controlled his empire. The moment they breached the Citadel, alarms blared. The ruse was over. Zolnar shock troops flooded the halls. Blasters flared. The battle was chaos. Rains led the charge, his pulse rifle carving through Zolnar warriors. Karvik, wounded but relentless, tore through enemies with his claws. The Unbroken fought like demons. And at the center of it all, Voss reached Xyros. The reckoning. Xyros stood before the command throne, his golden eyes filled with contempt. "You fight for nothing, human," he sneered. "Your species is a dying ember." Voss raised his weapon. "Then let me show you what fire looks like." The two clashed in brutal combat, blades, fists, and raw fury. Xyros was strong, but Voss fought with something stronger: the unbroken will of humanity. With a final strike, Voss drove his knife into Xyros' chest. The High Commander's eyes widened in shock as he collapsed. Across the planet, the Dominion's command structure shattered. The fleet above, leaderless and confused, fell into disarray. The rebellion had cut off the head of the serpent. A galaxy changed forever. As the Black Nova and its allies escaped into the stars, the message spread across the galaxy: the Xelnar are not gods. They can fall. Humanity is alive, and we do not surrender. The war was far from over. But for the first time in history, the Dominion was afraid, and humanity would never be broken again.